Good evening. Welcome to the April edition of the Low Carb Support Group meeting. You'll notice that there's somebody missing. He couldn't be here tonight. So you're going to have the Amy and Amber show instead. But we're going to be here to answer all your questions. I know a lot of you have heard Amy speak before, and I'll let her introduce herself. I am the program advisor for HEAL clinics, for HEAL Diabetes clinics. So any questions that you have about how the HEALcare program works, I can answer those for you. There's some information on the tables also about all the different programs that we have. We have a medically supervised program, and we also have a weight loss program. And the weight loss program is completely done over the phone or over a video conference, and our medically supervised program does require one visit to the clinic. Now, I will also say that I didn't just start out as an employee. I started out as a HEALcare participant. I went through the program myself. I spent a full year in the program, and I lost 51 pounds my first year, and I reversed my type 2 diabetes. I got my LDL in line. I have my blood pressure back under control. Let me see. I stopped taking all of my anti-inflammatories. I was taking 2 Voltaren per day. So I can tell you that this works, and it worked for me. The second year that I was in the program, or following this way of eating, I quit smoking. It was the easiest thing that I had ever done. And the only thing I can explain is that being ketogenic helped with that somehow. I laid my cigarettes down, walked away. 3 weeks later, someone asked me, "How are you doing with not smoking?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's right, I used to smoke." It was seriously that easy. I can't explain it except to say that going through the HEALcare program, I had a lot of really phenomenal coaching. And that coaching it taught me how to look at things in a little different way. So sorry about that. That would have been my child falling. So I am very excited about this program. It's not just that I work for them. I found that this program has made a complete change in the way that I see eating, the way that I see my life in general. When I look at food, when I sit down and look at a menu or anything like that, I never even say what I can't have. It's not about what I can't have anymore. It's about what I choose to have, because I'm choosing foods that make me feel good all the time. And so when my friends asked me, they were like, "Oh, when are you going to be done dieting?" I said, "I don't diet. I do not diet." And the way I explained it to them, I said, "You don't ask my husband to eat onions or drink coffee." And they said, "Of course we wouldn't. He's allergic to those." And I said, "Exactly." I said, "So why would you ask me to eat foods that made me sick, made my joints ache, that made my blood glucose out of control, made all kinds of problems in my body?" I said, and they were like, "I hadn't even thought about it that way." And once you start to think of things a little bit different, and the coaching part of the HEALcare program was what got me to that place. It also taught me some really great skills about learning things like, am I a boredom eater? And what I realized was absolutely, when I get bored, that's when I need a snack. And so I play a little game. Yeah.
She's not the only one.
So we have this little game that we play, and it's called "Are You Hungry Enough To?" So you have to choose something you don't like to do. And for me, it's cleaning bathrooms. And I have multiple bathrooms in my house. So I'm like, okay. So I go, I need a snack. And I'm like, really? Are you hungry? And I'm like, of course I'm hungry. Really? So then I go, okay, are you hungry enough to clean the bathroom? And I'm like, oh, no. I'm like, well, you're not hungry. So I have a whole conversation with myself. But then occasionally, I'll say yes. And then I'll go clean the bathroom. And guess what? When I'm finished cleaning the bathroom, about 50% of the time, I've forgotten that I wanted a snack. So I truly was bored. I did convince myself that I truly was hungry enough to clean a bathroom. But once I cleaned the bathroom and I did something, I wasn't hungry anymore. So Again, those were little things that we learned when we're going through the program. Now, Amy will tell you that there's all kinds of different ways to do this. Some people don't need all of the support. They can do things on their own and that type of thing. But for those of us who need a little more support, we have this HEALcare program in place. And Dr. Westman has had a really phenomenal, you guys all see this online public offering on the table. We are about to finish this up. The end of this month, I believe, is, did you know what the ending date is? Yeah, I don't know if we have it up there or not, but the ending date is coming up very soon for this online public offering. And I know that Dr. Westman has mentioned it the last few months, but we want to say thank you to everyone who has supported the HEALcare, the HEAL Clinics program, because this is going to allow us to open more clinics in more places so that Dr. Westman's can help more people. Thank you guys very much, and we're going to let Amy introduce herself here, and we'll talk a little bit, and then we'll answer all of your questions.
Okay, hi everybody, and hello everybody watching online. Please don't stop watching because Dr. Westman's not here. I think we're going to have a Q&A that will be really educational and informative, so don't turn your monitors off or whatever you're watching on. So I am Amy Berger. Some of you know me, some of you don't. I've spoken here at the support group in the past on different topics. I am a low-carb and keto-friendly nutritionist, and I'm the author of a book called The Alzheimer's Antidote, which is about using a ketogenic diet as a nutritional therapy for Alzheimer's disease, which some of you might know, they now call type 3 diabetes. Anyway, I hate to kind of start this meeting off on a little sad note, but Dr. Westman would be horrified if he knew I was telling you this because he's a very private man, but Dr. Westman's father passed away this morning. The elder, Dr. Westman, was also a doctor. He was a child psychiatrist. So that's not actually the reason our younger Dr. Westman is not here. He's on a plane to Indonesia right now to speak at a low-carb conference. And he was just in China 2 weeks ago, having been invited to speak about keto and teach medical professionals in China about keto. So if you can imagine that they're inviting people to East Asia and Southeast Asia to talk about keto, the land of rice and noodles. This keto thing is really catching on. Anyway, I thought it would be a really nice gesture to Dr. Westman if we would just have a moment of silence in honor of the life and memory of Dr. Jack Westman. So, let's see, what else? I don't want to bore you with my story. I was not born eating low carb myself. I eat this way now. I'm hoping that Amber and I don't want to talk. We want you to talk. So if there's a huge lull at any point, I can tell my own story. Or I do, God help us, I brought a thumb drive. I can give a talk, a presentation, if I must, but I'd rather not. I'd rather, hear from all of you. Do we need to, you got the slide. She did my job. There's only 3 slides, and I can't even be trusted with that. So is anyone new here? Is anyone here for the first time? Awesome, look at that, that's great. Thank you so much for coming. So don't be shy. If anybody would like to come up and introduce themselves, tell us who you are, where you're from, why you're doing keto, how things are going. Or you could work up the courage and do it later. That's okay.
New people or
anyone's welcome. I just wanted to start off with the new people. Anyone is welcome to come up and tell us your story, tell us what's going well, what's not going so well. But then I wanted to do kind of an AMA style, ask me anything, keto, low carb related. I may or may not have the answer, but I can try. And when in doubt, the answer is going to be page 4 anyway, right? So, when in doubt, that's the answer, but maybe there might be a slightly different answer depending on the question. So yeah, feel free to come on up, or we can start the Q&A, or I can tell my story, but I'd rather not talk so much. Yes, in the back?
I'm not going to be on COVID. Fast. I can fast for about maybe 18 hours, and then I start eating, but after I start eating, I'm hungry, and I have to eat
Okay, so just to repeat for the people watching online because they might not hear it, we have a question about fasting. A lady said that she fasts about 18 hours and it's fine, but once she starts eating, she gets hungry and she wants to keep eating. That's called a totally normal human body. In my opinion, honestly, to be 100% honest, the same thing happens to me. And we hear all different kinds of things about fasting. You should eat your meals early in the day and stop eating at night, or you should fast for most of the day and skew your eating later at night. I think it's an entirely individual thing. I think it depends on what fits into your schedule, what fits into your life. A lot of people that have families and children find it's better for them to skip breakfast or breakfast and lunch and have dinner because that's more of a family meal. Breakfast, sometimes people leave before the kids are even awake. I've heard Dr. Westman say, eating makes you hungry. So you can like not eat and not eat and not eat, and then as soon as you flip the switch, forget it, that's it. So I think there's different answers to that solution. I think that's okay as long as the total amount of food you're eating is still suitable for your body and your goals. I think so you're only eating one meal a day?
I snack. No, I don't cook.
Okay, that's okay. As long as they're very low carb, keto friendly snacks.
I try to stay under 2 carbs a day if I can.
Okay, so that should be fine. I think that's fine, except maybe eating 2 meals a day would not make you quite as hungry. You know, if you and as long as it's a very, very low carb meal, you eat a substantial amount of protein and fat, that should tide you over for a while. Then you have another. I think you may get less hungry after the 1 meal if you were already eating, especially some protein. Oh, that's a good question. How long have you been eating this way?
Probably all my life.
No, I mean, how long have you been keto or low carb?
Probably since January, but probably last March, I kind of really got into it and started fasting. Some years a day, I thought it was like 72 hours or whatever, but I just couldn't make it.
I would say that there's one thing that with fasting, let your body kind of adjust to this way of eating. Don't jump straight into fasting. I don't find fasting is necessarily the best way in the beginning, because what we want to do, and one of the things that we'll tell you is that your body needs to learn to trust you. And so all this time we have been feeding our body on a schedule, or we've been feeding our body, starving ourselves to death, you know, to try and eat a certain way. And so what we're asking you to do is to listen to your body in the very beginning. So in the very beginning, eat when you're hungry. Stop when you're full. Dr. Westman has said that a million times. So it's just eat when you're hungry. You know, and eat something that's on plan, that type of thing, but don't deny yourself food if you are hungry. So, and I've heard,
Are you hungry enough to clean the bathroom? Because honestly, it's so easy to say eat when you're hungry. It's really, really hard to do that. It's so hard to do that. Stop when you're satisfied but not stuffed. I haven't mastered that. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. You guys know what that comedian says. I won't give his name because he's very controversial. He's done some bad stuff. But he says, the meal isn't over when I'm full. The meal is over when I hate myself. I mean, we've all been there, right? But you're laughing because it's true. We all know exactly what he means. So yes, eat when you're hungry. But when you said, am I hungry enough too? That's the game. I've heard it more like, am I hungry enough for steak? Because if I'm hungry enough for a donut, but I'm not hungry enough for a pork chop and asparagus, I'm not hungry, I'm just craving sugar. Or I just feel like eating. And I don't think there's anything wrong with snacking. Or, you know, but you have to choose the right things. And fasting can be helpful, but it's not required. When I was new to this, I started with the Atkins diet, the basic straight up Atkins diet. There is zero about fasting in the Atkins book, not a single word. And people did great with this way of eating. So fasting's not required. Everyone sort of becomes so interested with it and enamored with it, and it can help, but it's not essential. The single most important thing about this is keeping carbs really, really low. And usually when people do that, I don't even like the word fasting. I'll say skipping a meal, or what they call time-restricted eating. That happens naturally because you're just so satisfied and because you're running on fat. At the cellular level, internally, you're eating. I'm eating right now. I'm eating this bagel I ate 30 years ago. You know, I'm eating like, literally when you're on a ketogenic diet and your insulin level is really low and you're tapping into that stored body fat, you're eating all the time even when you're not putting food into your mouth. You're eating internally at the cellular level. So once your body becomes really adjusted to that, you find that you don't have to eat 3 or 4 times a day. You can if for whatever reason you need to, but most people end up eating 2 meals a day or even 1 meal a day with some snacks just because they're not that hungry. But don't feel bad if that magical thing hasn't happened for you. Maybe it will, maybe it won't, but just keep your carbs really low. This fasting thing, I just don't know. Everybody's so into fasting. And like I say, it can help. It's not bad. But when you say you try to go 72 hours, you don't need to do, don't feel bad about that you can't make it. You don't need to. You don't need, let me rephrase. You don't need to do long-term fasting to get the benefits and the good effects of this way of eating.
Yes. Can we come on down? No problem.
I was watching a YouTube video recently, and the speaker was a dietitian. I think her name is Jessica Turto or Turton, something like that. But she deals with people who are on keto diets and also people who have a problem with binge eating. And what she tells them to do is to keep a brick of cheese in the refrigerator. And whenever you want to binge, or whenever you're hungry, or you feel like you're going to kind of break your diet, she says, eat the cheese. Eat as much of the cheese as you want. And that's kind of her way of helping people, get through cravings. And I was just wondering what you think of that, because I started doing that. I always have a brick of cheese now in my refrigerator, and I've used that a couple of times, and it's worked for me. I was just wondering what you think.
Okay, so what was asked was, there is, and I didn't get her name, what was her name? She was a nutritionist, but
She's a nutritionist. Her name's Jessica Turton or Turto or something like that. I think she's
Jessica Turton or something, okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, she said to put a brick of cheese in the refrigerator, and when you have the cravings or feel like you're going to binge or something like that, to go and eat the cheese. Yeah, that, I don't see any issue with that as long as you're trying to keep that within your carb count for the day, that type of thing. And I would say that it would be very difficult to overeat a brick of cheese. There is only so much cheese that you can actually eat. I mean, before it gets like, oh, I can't eat another bite of that. There is a limit. I have found that I know where it's at. I'm just saying. This is experience speaking. So I don't think that's a bad idea. We do try to, at the beginning of our program, try to limit our hard cheeses to about 4 ounces. And there's a reason for that. It's just so that you don't have to count. That's the reason we put that in there. It doesn't have anything to do with, any special, formula. It's about, this is just making it simple, keeping, keto very uncomplicated.
I'm gonna be the bad cop here. I'm gonna be the devil's advocate, but I can do that because Amber and I are friends. It's all good. If I did that, if I kept the block of cheese in my fridge and I could just eat that whenever I was craving or felt like I was gonna binge, my serving size is the block of cheese. So, but here's the thing. I hate to keep being so gray area, but that's what this is. Some people can have a little wedge of cheese and move on with their day and it's fine. Some people are gonna just self-implode and have as much cheese as is available is what they'll eat. In my non-scientific opinion, it's much better to binge on a keto-friendly food than to binge on regular sugar ice cream or cookies or chips or whatever. Better to overeat on cheese, but depending on clearly it's not working against your weight. You're not exactly obese. Maybe you were, I don't know, it's not my business, but I don't know that that's a great solution. If it helps, it helps. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Because honestly, I find that somebody with a binge eating pattern or a food addiction, they always say, well, nobody overeats X food. You want to bet? You want to bet they don't? So if it works, it works. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
That's all I can say, really. Yeah.
The only other issue that would be there are some people that do have a sensitivity to dairy, and dairy will stall them and give them an issue. So those people might want to avoid the block of cheese idea. They might want to go with cleaning the bathroom. But you do have to, if you like cleaning bathrooms, I'm going to suggest you choose something different. So, any other questions?
Low carb versus keto. Difference?
This is kind of right in my wheelhouse. This is kind of what I do all the time with clients. So keto is low carb on steroids, right? Keto is very, very low carb. Keto has nothing to do with the amount of fat you're eating, with your macros. All it has to do with is that your carbohydrate intake is low enough that you are in the state of ketosis, that you are a fat-burning machine, as Dr. Westman would say, right? Low carb just means low carb. And many people can do just fine on a low carb diet. And low carb, depending on who you ask, it doesn't really have an exact definition. It could be between 50 and 100 or 50 and 150 grams of carbs. 150 grams of carbs probably sounds like a lot to most of us, but compared to what the average person is eating, that's actually pretty low. So some people can have resolution of whatever symptoms they have. They can lose weight on low carb. Many can't. I think the reason Dr. Westman and the HEAL clinics emphasizes that page 4 or the HEAL handbook or whatever it's called with the 20 grams or less is because Dr. Westman knows, he's got 20 years of experience, that's going to work every time for everybody. Some of us might do just fine at 50 or 80 grams of carbs, and that's something that you can experiment with after you've been at 20 for a while. You can very gradually reintroduce small amounts and see how you do. If the weight stays off, if the blood sugar stays down, the blood pressure stays down, every bad thing that went away, if that stays gone when you're eating slightly more carbs, you have a higher carb tolerance. The original Atkins diet, which page 4 is based on, page 4 is the Atkins induction, but the original Atkins diet had 3 phases. And the 2 phases after the very, very strict induction period walked you through the process of reintroducing carbs. And it was 5 grams a week. It wasn't anything huge. And it wasn't like after 2 or 3 weeks of induction, all of a sudden you're going to go to the Olive Garden and you're going to get pasta and breadsticks. No, it was like originally you reintroduce, you have larger servings of the vegetables you're already, more lettuce, more broccoli. Maybe then you start introducing a 1/4 cup of raspberries. You probably never get to the point where you're having bread and pasta and potatoes and rice, but you might get to 50 grams of carbs, 60 grams from vegetables, from nuts and seeds. That's the really long answer to low carb just means you're having slightly more carb. I consider myself low carb. I bounce in and out of ketosis just depending on what I'm eating or what I'm not eating. But I don't deliberately aim to be in ketosis all the time. It happens often, but yeah, I think we've actually gone a little too far in demonizing carbohydrate across the board. Nobody ever got diabetes from eating too much cantaloupe. But the thing is, once you're already sick, once you're already obese, once you already have diabetes or hypertension, you might not be able to eat an otherwise wholesome food like that somebody who's healthy and has always been healthy can.
Yes.
You said that you bounce in and out of ketosis. Are you checking it, or how do you know when you're in and when you're out?
So she was asking about how do I know that I'm in or out of ketosis? How do I check? I do use the urine strips. Not every day. I have a blood meter. I don't use it that often. It's kind of a pain. I have a breath meter. I don't even know how to use it. I took it out of the packaging once, and I haven't used it because it just looks really complicated. I use the urine strips, and you'll hear all kinds of stuff online. The urine strips don't work, they're not accurate, blah, blah. They work. They work. There may be some rare cases in which they don't work. I think that's very rare. I think for most people they work. The thing to understand is that the ketone level will fluctuate throughout the day. So if you check at 8 a.m. and there's no change, you might check at 4 p.m. and it's pink or it's purple. And that color, any color change is a good sign. Even light pink, it doesn't have to be super dark purple. Any kind of pink, because it really doesn't matter what your ketone level is. If there's any change at all, any detectable level of ketone, the best thing that that tells you is that your insulin is low enough and your blood sugar is low enough that you're producing some amount of ketones, and that's what you want. So I do use the urine, and I do find, and I think this varies individually, I'm lighter in the morning and I'm darker later in the day. Of course, after I've eaten a fatty meal. You know, but some people find the opposite. Some people find they're nice and dark in the morning. I don't know.
Yes.
I just wanted to mention that I recently found a little keto meter that's about $30, and it works really cool and it's really easy. You know, it's bread meter called House of Keto, the keto monitor. So I wanted to share that because I had early on I had the fancy one that had to plug in and everything, and I was like, whoa, you know, and I kind of gave up. It worked so well.
And it was House of Keto?
This is House of Keto, and it's a keto monitor.
Okay, she's had good luck with the House of Keto, and it's a breath.
It's a breath
monitor.
yes,
Okay,
yes.
breath monitor.
I'm very pleased with it.
Good.
Check every so often.
I want to give one little tip about the urine strips. If you choose to use them, and you don't have to, you can cut them in half the long way, and you get double the strips for the same price. That's a little budget tip. Word to the wise, though, you can't do that with the blood strips. The blood meters, like, it doesn't work that way. And I know that if you read the instructions on the bottle of the urine strips, like, don't touch the reagent strip. It's really not that big a deal. I don't think you mess it up. But what I do is I just hold it, and I mean, get a really good quality scissor, and you just cut it along. And try not to touch the reagent strip, but if you do, don't think it's really that big a deal. Anyone work up the courage yet to come tell us your story? Don't be shy. We have stuff to give away. We have five awesome keto-friendly condiments. So if 5 of you want to come up and tell your stories, I have tried these myself. We got these samples at a conference. It's teriyaki sauce, barbecue sauce, which you know, some things are easy to make keto. You can make homemade vinaigrettes, homemade salad dressings. It's really hard to do a sugar-free barbecue sauce. You can find recipes online. They're a giant pain in the you-know-what because there's like 20 ingredients. Steak sauce, Thai chili sauce. So I've used these. There's no weird ingredients in them, depending on your definition of weird. And like I said, I test my urine ketones. I've never had a problem with these. So if you want one of these, come up. Or we're just gonna have to start giving them to people to ask questions. Now we're gonna be flooded.
On the side.
Okay.
Or here, I'll let you. Yeah.
My name is Roger Helms, and I've been doing the keto, or Dr. Westmans low carb, however you want to talk about it, since January of last year. And at that time I found out I was diabetic. So I didn't really want to do all the injections for insulin and everything. And so I started researching and found Dr. Westman and a few other folks. After trying the 88 measures as far as what to do food-wise, I told my wife one day that wasn't working. So we tried this, went to the 20 carbs, and my blood sugar started going down. So it was a real big thing for us. It was about 3 months later, I went back to the doctor. My A1C, when they found it, was 13. Wow. And, so when I went back to him, it was like 10 after about 3 months. And then up to this point now, it's at 5.2. So, really worked for me. It's been that way for a good 6 months or more, so I'm real happy with that. Also, my weight, I weighed like 225, and now I'm like 158. My wife also did it with me, so that helped a lot. And she's lost about 50 to 60 pounds also at this point, so she's really happy with that.
Is she here?
She's here tonight also. I'm real proud of her doing that. So that was my story.
Awesome. Thank you. You can choose a condiment if you want to.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
My name is Linda. I'm 70 years old. I started coming to these meetings, I think like around November last year. I came to 3 meetings before deciding to start the diet. I've been, many years up and down, that sort of thing. I have done low carb before and managed to lose a lot of weight and keep it off for about 2 years. But I wanted to be sure before I started this that I was committed not just to losing the weight, but to staying in the lifestyle. I actually started 9 weeks ago today, and I've lost a bit over 25 pounds since then.
My name's Melissa, and I have kind of done this all by myself. I don't go to the HEALs clinic or anything, but I have fibromyalgia really bad, and I've been slowly changing my diet, and then I found keto, and I feel so much better. I'm not 100%, but I'm doing a lot better. I'm standing in front of you today, which at the time when I first found all this out, I could barely even go to work every day. And I really thought I was gonna have to quit my job, and I didn't want to do anything at night, and I just wanted to stay home and lay on my couch all night. And now I'm feeling so much better. I'm going to the gym now, and I haven't lost a ton of weight, but it doesn't matter because I feel great, so that's all that matters.
That's one thing that people talk about, that they, they haven't lost a ton of weight, or that they, but I think the sicker that we are sometimes, the longer that it takes our bodies to heal, and the weight doesn't necessarily come off. And I say that because last year when I quit smoking, I didn't lose any weight. I didn't change the way I was eating whatsoever. I ate the exact same way the whole entire year. I didn't lose not even 1 pound. I didn't gain any, but I didn't lose anything. Starting this year, continue eating the exact same way that I've been eating for the 2 years prior to that. I lost 10 pounds since the beginning of the year, without even trying. So that was, I think it took a full year for my body to heal from having smoked for so long. So, and I don't know, I think sometimes that's what it does.
And I just found HEAL's clinic, like, last month was my first meeting. I found it just before last month's meeting.
That's one. So you've only been doing this a month?
I've only come to, this is my
Second meeting? Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So yeah, it takes some time just to let your body heal, most definitely.
I think one thing that's important too to add to this kind of conversation is that, believe it or not, weight loss is not required to experience the metabolic internal benefits of this way of eating. And we know it's not because I've read published papers about that very thing. In fact, if we didn't have enough talk tonight, part of the talk that I've given in the past that I was going to give is patients who have bariatric surgery or adopt a ketogenic diet have very, very quick improvements in blood sugar, insulin levels, blood pressure, inflammation, joint pain, acne, blah, blah, GERD, acid, you name it, every single thing, long before they've lost a lot of weight. Let's say you have someone who's a candidate for bariatric surgery. They could be 400, 500, 600 pounds. They have the surgery. Within days, you would take their blood work and not call them diabetic because their glucose is down, everything's down. The same thing happens on keto. If you know Dr. Jason Fung, he calls bariatric surgery surgically enforced fasting. And we know that the ketogenic diet mimics fasting. Some people would even say fasting mimics the ketogenic diet. Either way, the biological mechanisms that happen are the same. When you don't eat or when you eat foods that really do not affect your blood sugar or insulin, you stay in that low insulin state, allowing you access to the fat. So the bottom line is you experience huge improvements in all of these metabolic conditions long before you lose a large amount of weight. And we know that there's so many people who adopt this way of eating who haven't had an extra ounce of fat in their lives. People do this for epilepsy, they do it for Parkinson's disease, they do it for GERD, they do it for migraines. So this doesn't have to be a weight loss diet. I like to consider LCHF, keto, low carb, a weight normalizing diet. You can lose weight if you're overweight. You can gain weight on keto if you need to. There's a lot of underweight people who have like celiac disease or Crohn's or some kind of malabsorption where these are the people we love to hate because they can eat everything in sight and they don't gain a pound. But we don't envy their diarrhea, their intestinal pain, their exhaustion. They don't gain any weight because they're not absorbing any of their nutrients. So there's, and keto fixes a lot of that because a lot of the foods that cause that or that make that worse are grains, they're wheat, they're sugars. So a lot of people adopt this way of eating for reasons totally outside weight loss. So you can definitely, I'm not surprised that you're feeling way better and you haven't lost a substantial amount of weight. That's how this works. Are we able to take questions from online? I don't know if somebody can monitor the Facebook page or not, but if not, but that would be nice if the people watching could have a chance to.
Let me see.
Oh, well, before I forget, let me give a little plug. I just moved to Durham a few months ago, and I don't know a soul except a couple of people here. I mean, who doesn't know Roy? Everybody knows. How about a hand for Roy? the person who keeps Dr. Westman's clinic running. Let's be realistic about that. So I started a meetup group. Like, I have to meet people. This is ridiculous. I forget the exact title. If you go on meetup.com, it's the Durham Keto Low Carb Supper Club. I just want to have a dinner, like once a week at a different restaurant. No talks, no science, just eating and chatting, and it's going to be fun and social. And we had our first meetup last week. I hope to have more in the future. And no one has to come every week. I want to do it every week so that at least I get out once a week with other humans. I work from home. It can be very isolating and very lonely. So this was a totally selfish thing that I started, but it's a way to come out and eat, with other people that do low carb, and you're not going to be the weird one for not eating the bun.
What was the name again?
I don't remember. It's Durham. It's either Durham Low Carb / Keto Supper Club or Durham Keto / Low Carb Supper Club. But if you search for one of those, it'll come up on meetup.com.
We don't have any questions yet.
Okay, so we've just started the potential for online questions. I think somebody raised their hand over here before, or no?
Really, Judy? No questions? I mean, seriously.
I have no question.
I was just like,
No,
Judy
but
always has a list. Plug my Charlotte group. My Charlotte.
You want to plug your? I don't know about your Charlotte group. I know that it exists, but.
All right. I have started the Charlotte Digital Keto Meetup group, and I have a website, and yes, a Twitter account. I went all out. So follow me on there, and we meet on the third Tuesday, since they meet on the first Tuesday, and it's just a support group to help you get over the humps that I had when I first started. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. What's the name of the group?
If you Digital Keto.
Yes, in the back.
It's Durham Keto / Low Carb Supper Club.
Thank you.
years, doctor took both husband and myself off diabetes medications. Can't seem to get our blood sugars down below around 140. Any suggestions is what we can do.
I would need to know a lot more, so I guess if you're watching, you can tell us a little more. So you've been doing keto for years, so that's the first question, how long you've been doing it. The fasting blood sugar, I assume you mean fasting 140. So that's a little high, that's on the high side. It's not super high, we've all seen worse. If anyone here has type 2 diabetes or had type 2 diabetes, your fasting sugar could have been 300. You would have been happy to see 140. So if somebody had had much higher blood sugar in the past, either unmedicated or with medication, and that 140 is now, I think she said we're off medication, right? Yeah, doctor took me and my husband off diabetes meds. I know several of the keto-friendly medical doctors that I know would say they would prefer you to have a slightly higher fasting glucose off of medication than a quote-unquote normal glucose on medication. So you can have a fasting of 140 unmedicated, or you can have a fasting of 99 on 100 units of insulin, on metformin, on whatever. It might still come down over time. I would think your A1C is probably more important than the fasting glucose. And if you're only checking in the morning, check a few times throughout the day. Because that 140 might be your highest reading. You might be at 98 at 3 in the afternoon, or at 75, we don't know. And I would also, if you are not aware of something called the dawn phenomenon, look up the dawn phenomenon, dawn, D-A-W-N. There's a lot of people who have a higher fasting blood sugar, and it doesn't necessarily mean anything terrible is going on. It's, most people have a higher blood sugar in the morning, but in a non-diabetic person, your body handles it quickly so that by the time you wake up, if you were to check your sugar, it's 79, it's 102, it's 85. In somebody with diabetes or a history of diabetes, maybe it's 110, maybe it's 140 sounds kind of high to me, but it doesn't alarm me that much, especially if you're off medication. I would pay more attention to the A1C and, like I said, measure a couple times throughout the day to see if maybe you might be a lot lower during the day if you don't know if you're only checking in the morning.
I don't track macros, but I do eat a lot of protein. Should that be a concern? I've heard that it can be hard on kidneys. Knew you were going to.
So there's you read into the mic, a question about protein in the kidneys and macros. Thank you for asking, Sabrina. This protein kidney thing is a total 100% myth. A high protein intake will do zero to damage your kidneys, zero. I wrote a very detailed blog post about this. If you search my tuitnutrition.com, T-U-I-T nutrition.com, protein kidneys, that post should come up. There used to be some debate in the medical field as to whether somebody who had existing kidney disease would be harmed by high protein. And even those studies don't show that. Even the single most damaging things, I was going to say thing, it's really two things. The single most damaging things to the kidneys are high blood sugar and high insulin. And if you read that blog post, I linked to a study by, I don't remember if it's the American Kidney Foundation or whoever. You could not get more mainstream than this, like not a keto organization. And they list 12 causes of kidney disease or 12 risk factors. Not among them whatsoever is a high protein intake. So enjoy your protein. If you are trying to lose weight on keto, protein is your best friend.
Okay, so let's talk about macros and protein because people get really wound up about that.
Okay, so the other part of her question was about macros. If any of you happen to have seen my YouTube channel at all, I have a video that says no such thing as keto macros. And I said that the word macros is like, it's like that nails on a chalkboard to me. I didn't tell you my story. I guess I'll tell you it real quick now to get into the macro thing. I used to be heavier. I never had, obesity or morbid obesity or anything, but I was heavier. And I was heavier despite doing a ton of exercise, despite what I thought was a healthy diet, all my I can't believe it's not butter life on my wheat toast, and my Special K with my skim milk, and my running 2 hours a day, and I was chubby. I don't have any before pictures here to show you. I don't even have pictures of myself at my heaviest because I didn't want my picture taken. So the pictures that I have where I'm heavier is not my heaviest. They don't, there's like a decade that there's no photographic evidence that I existed. Anyway, I used to be heavier. I found the Atkins diet. The floodgates parted, all the good stuff happened. But, like I said earlier, when I was new to this, there were like 2 or 3 books. That's it. There was the Atkins book, there was the book Protein Power, which is excellent, and there was a book called The Schwarzbein Principle, which I didn't find until after I read those other 2. And there was like 1 website. We're talking very late 90s, maybe the year 2000-ish, 2001. I mean, there was the internet, but low carb and keto, it wasn't like it is now. It is the Wild West right now in keto, social media, online. There's forums, there's YouTube, there's Reddit, there's Instagram, there's Facebook. God help us. So it's great that keto is becoming so popular, and there is so much more information, but because there's so much more information, there's a lot more misinformation, and there's a lot more myths, and there's a lot more people who, some 22-year-old kid who's never been heavy a day in their life is going to start their YouTube channel and tell you, the 400-pound diabetic, how to do keto. Like, okay, sure. Some of them don't have medical training, they don't have nutritional education. Thank you. So when I was new, there was so much less information, but what there was reliable, and there wasn't any confusion. There was I don't think the word macro or macronutrient is even in the book, the Atkins New Diet Revolution. I don't think it's in Protein, but maybe it is. It's been years since I read them. The only thing you had to do, the only thing I had to do when I was new is keep the carbs really low. And I'm gonna be the just unpopular, but in this crowd maybe not, and because I see very much eye to eye with Dr. Westman on this issue of food purity. When I was new, there was nothing about it has to be grass-fed, it has to be organic, you can't use Splenda, don't use sweet and low. It was like, we don't care what you eat as long as the carbs are really low. You can have your processed meat, you can have your pepperoni, your pork rinds, your salami, whatever. Just, is it under 20 carb? Okay, have it. Like, that's it. So the macros can help because this way of eating is not a license to eat unlimited fat. So even going back to that cheese block question, the reason cheese is limited on page 4 is because cheese is delicious and it's really easy to overdo. And it's not that cheese is not a keto-friendly food, it absolutely is. But if you eat a pound of it a day and you're wondering why you're having a hard time losing weight, that's where macros can come in, because I get emails from potential clients, well, I'm having trouble hitting my fat macro, or, I'm at 80% fat, why can't I lose weight? Well, because there's no such thing as macros. And if you want to use macros, I would say the most important thing is protein. And I hate going by percentages. When someone says, well, I'm at 70% fat, 12% protein, whatever carbs, that's meaningless to me if I don't know the total amount of food you're eating. I would much rather go by total grams. And so macros, I have friends that do macro calculators. I'm not opposed to the concept. Look at the thousands, if not millions of people that had success with this way of eating long before this whole macro concept existed. They just kept the carbs really low.
And I would add to that too, that I know personally, if I don't have enough protein, I'm not going to be losing weight. It's not going to happen. So for me, if I were paying attention to the macros and it was saying, for my height, weight, this and that, and the other, how much protein I should have, it wouldn't be enough. I have a higher protein need. I always have. I don't know why, but it just is. Leslie would like to know about cholesterol numbers getting higher on keto. I was on Crestor and stopped taking it. Cardiologist wants me to start taking again. Cholesterol was 230 and dropped to 110 on statins. Haven't had them tested since. Same here, was good at 6 months, hated being on Crestor. Dropped it, and now triglycerides are up in the 270s.
Okay, just confirm, is it the triglycerides that are at 270 for
That's
you?
somebody
Or,
else.
yeah, but
Yeah.
if you're still watching, is it your triglycerides or your total cholesterol or LDL that's at 270 for the second person? But either way, cholesterol questions. Must emphasize, I'm not a medical doctor, Amber's not a medical doctor, the medical doctor is not here. However, we've heard him address this many times and we can tell you what he said. You might want to read his book, Cholesterol Clarity, if you haven't already, by Dr. Eric Westman and his co-author Jimmy Moore. So, high cholesterol. Yes. Well, that's Keto Clarity.
Okay.
So it's the sister book. It's the sister book. It's blue. High cholesterol is not a disease. It's not a disease. It may not even be a
Yes, 270 less than tries.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. Usually, triglycerides usually stay very low as long as you're very low carb. So I'm not sure about the triglyceride issue, but cholesterol.
Cholesterol 230 and triglycerides 270.
Yeah, that's all. Well, we'll talk about that in a minute, the triglycerides. Let's stick with the cholesterol for now. On a ketogenic diet, many people see their cholesterol go down, total and LDL. Some other people see it go up. What we don't know is whether that means anything at all. When you have somebody who adopts this way of eating, and their blood sugar gets down, the insulin gets down, blood pressure gets down, inflammation goes down, HDL usually goes up, all of these beautiful things happen. The joint pain goes away, the acid reflux goes away, the gout goes away, the endometriosis goes away, or whatever, all of this stuff. And oh my God, but my cholesterol went up. Is the diet that made everything better, except that pesky cholesterol, really going to give you a heart attack? And again, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not saying it's safe to have a high cholesterol. But over and over and over again, it's been shown that, first of all, high cholesterol does not, the amount of cholesterol measured in your bloodstream tells you nothing at all about the amount of atherosclerotic plaque building up in your arteries. Nothing. If your cardiologist thinks it does, find a new one immediately. And about 50% of people who have heart attacks have a normal or even low cholesterol level. So when you have a quote-unquote high cholesterol, and by the way, my own cholesterol is sky high. My doctor doesn't care. And no, my doctor isn't Dr. Westman. But just to show you there's other doctors that know this stuff. High cholesterol, high total cholesterol or high LDL, in the context of high HDL, low triglycerides, again, low insulin, low blood sugar, it doesn't seem to be harmful at all. In fact, keto is really, really good for the cardiovascular system. Unfortunately, I can't give anyone an ironclad guarantee, like it's totally okay to have a cholesterol of 300. We don't know. What we do know is that it is nowhere near as black and white as we thought it was. And if you're concerned about your cholesterol, whether you're watching online or in here, try to find a keto-friendly cardiologist. They do exist. There is a website called, I think it's either ketogenicdocs.com or ketogenicdoctors.com. You can find there's Dr. Brett Scher, S-C-H-E-R. I've met him, I've seen him speak at some conferences. He is a keto-friendly cardiologist out of San Diego, but he does phone consultations that I don't think it's a medical appointment, but he can review your labs and stuff. I can't give you medical advice, but you're not alone. A lot of people have a rise in cholesterol on keto, and most of the keto-friendly doctors I know don't care. They don't think it's a bad thing at all, as long as everything else is looking good. Okay. Dr. Westman says hi. Ask him about cholesterol now. So for Jennifer watching, the triglyceride issue, I'm not sure. Usually triglycerides come down very quickly and very well on keto, but okay, oh good, yeah, thank you, thanks for that. Yeah, somebody linked to Brett Scher. I wonder what your triglycerides were before, because it's possible that the 270 is an improvement. If it was 500 before, if it was 1,000 before, 270 is great, because you're on the way down. I don't know what it was before, so. Or no, I think she said what it was before. That was the cholesterol. We don't know. We don't know what the trigs were before, so who knows.
other questions out here?
Any other success stories? Or, I mean, honestly, feel free to share your struggles. If there's something you're having a hard time with, maybe we can give you some help. Maybe some other people that have been through the same can give you some help. Like, I'd be lying to you if I said that keto stuck the first time I tried it. Nuh-uh, not even close. I was in college when I discovered it, and I don't know if I was too young or I just wasn't ready. I had a work-study job on my campus, and there was a lady, it was at the school library, and there was a woman in the office who was a baker. And I only worked, I think, twice a week at that job, but every Tuesday and Thursday, oh, there's a cake, oh, there's fudge. And I didn't have the mindset back then that like, oh, I'll have the one little piece. Okay, all right, move on. We're like, well, the day's ruined now. I might as well just go get fries, you know? It took a long time for it to stick. It did. And if you're having a hard time, you're not alone. Like if you're looking around at everyone, this is so easy for everyone. They don't miss the bread. No, like for some people, this works like magic the first time, and for a lot of people, it doesn't. Whether you just crave sugar, or you eat when you're bored, or you have a food addiction or a binge eating problem, so many people do. And it's very rarely talked about. I actually submitted a proposal to give a talk about this at a keto event in July, which I'll give a plug for because they're trying to raise money on Kickstarter. It's Keto Fest. You may have heard by the two keto dudes, Carl and Richard, if you follow them. Keto Fest funding is lagging behind a little bit, so if you want to get in on the Kickstarter, and it's not donated money, that's the price of your ticket. I think it's ketofest.com, so you can check that out. That's in Connecticut in July. But so that's, I would love to give this talk there. It's okay if it's not easy. It doesn't mean you can't do it, and you're not the only one. If it's hard, just get back on. Every time you fall off the horse, get right back on. Question?
I wanted to offer a piece of advice to the woman who, once she started eating, she was just like really hungry. And that is, one of the things that helped me was understanding that it takes longer for the hormones that tell you you're satiated to kick in than you know. So I would often find myself I'd eat my meal and be ravenous afterwards because yes, I was full, but the hormones hadn't gotten caught up with it yet. So it's like, eat what you're planning to eat, wait 20 minutes, and then if you're still ravenous, maybe have a little bit more. But I think you'll find that just give yourself a little time, and it won't be the issue.
Yeah, I think that's a great piece of advice. I'll just repeat it quickly for the people online. She was offering some advice too. We had a question earlier about someone who said she was fasting for about 18 hours, but then when she ate, it was all bets are off. After that, it's just very hungry. And this someone else suggested that eat what you plan to eat and wait 20 minutes. And if you're still hungry, eat more, but you might find you're not hungry because the hormones and the things that work in the brain and the stomach to register satiety take time to kick in. I think that's great advice. I also think probably eating more slowly applies to some people because they know like it takes a while to feel full. So if you inhale your food, you might eat more, and then you actually get stuffed because by the time you even notice that you're full, you're stuffed. Yeah, thank you.
Beth Ann says that while we're announcing support groups, they have started a Facebook page and are planning get-togethers, potlucks, recipe sharing in the immediate area called Triangle Low Carb Support. So, then there's also this is Janet, been on Dr. Westman's diet for 5 months, never had cravings until now. I haven't caved in. Any suggestions?
So you've been on it for 5 months. Has something changed very recently that you think is causing the cravings, if they weren't an issue until now? That would be my question, because I don't know why you're craving, or I don't know if something has changed in the situation.
Stress?
Could be stress, sleep, death in the family, change of job, like who knows, It's not if this was easy, we wouldn't need a support group, The way the brain works, the stuff that makes us hungry, the stuff that makes us crave sugar, entire textbooks have been written about this.
She said she didn't think anything had changed.
Yeah.
It changes.
A change in meds can do it. Sometimes, if you're at or close to your goal weight, you might need to adjust a little bit because you're not in the same place you were when you started. Now, that doesn't usually happen over the course of 5 months. I'm not sure why she started the ketogenic diet or if weight loss was even a goal or not. But you know, and very often, like especially if you were very heavy or type 2 diabetic at one point and now you're not, and especially if you're exercising, your appetite's gonna change. You might, some people, I hope Dr. Westman's not watching anymore, some people do better with a little bit of starch once in a while, especially if they're lifting a lot or working out a lot. It's not essential, I'm not telling you to do it, but you know, especially if you're at your goal, if you're very active, you are literally not the same person you were when you started a year ago, 6 months ago. So, you know, maybe you're not eating enough. If you lost a lot of weight and you're maintaining a lower weight, maybe you need more food. I don't know, it could be any number of reasons.
I heard that.
We're in trouble now.
It's okay. Oops. You can't get away with anything. You really was not even watching us, so. I also find if I use.
Yeah, someone is chiming in that she sees an increase in cravings if she uses the artificial sweeteners, or I guess she mentioned stevia and erythritol, which some people don't consider artificial. Depends on your way of thinking. That could some people find. I think they have increased cravings from that. For me, you know, I said earlier I use artificial sweeteners. I'm not a purist. I think that makes me not crave because I can have sweet. I use sweet and low in my coffee. I don't do like the keto treats though. I don't do like almond flour cake with a cup of erythritol. So maybe that stuff would make me crave more, but I think that's a very individual thing.
Great information. Wish more physicians were willing to give suggestions to try and
Me too, Nancy. Well, I mean, so somebody was commenting that she wishes more physicians were on board with this stuff. The good news is though, more and more of them are coming. It's just slow. If you could go to some of the conferences that Amber and I have been at, it's loaded with MDs. MDs and naturopaths and chiropractors and osteopathic doctors, but MDs, like the real deal. There's a lot more coming on board. I mean, that's why we have these websites now where they're listed. And I think there's probably a lot of doctors and nurse practitioners and PAs who do this who are just quiet about it because they don't want to get in trouble, they don't want to rock the boat, so I think you kind of have to know who they are. They're coming on board, and I think it's because the science, we're reaching a tipping point where it's undeniable. I mean, it was undeniable to me 10 years ago, but maybe I'm an easy customer, I don't know. We're reaching a critical mass now with the science that you just cannot ignore it. Does everybody need to do keto? No. But does keto work better than just about everything else it's ever compared to? Yes. You can lose weight on a low-fat diet. It ain't easy and it's not fun, and you'll be hungry and grouchy all the time. You can do it, but you know, on keto you can eat ribeye steak, so I know which one I'm going to choose.
Sorry for being so talkative, but one question I had is, and this was based on reading Dr. Fung's book, I found it really interesting that when you're fasting, your metabolism goes up. When you're on a carb-restricted diet or a calorie-restricted diet, your metabolism goes down. And I was wondering how keto fit in with that somewhat, because it is, you do go to a lower calorie simply because you're satiated. So could it be having an effect lowering your metabolism? If so, what can you do to offset that?
Good question. So she was talking about fasting, having read Dr. Fung's book, that when you go on a calorie-restricted diet, your metabolism slows down, which many of us have probably experienced or think we experienced, something like that. Whereas if you fast or do keto, your metabolism doesn't slow down, or Dr. Fung says fasting even speeds it up. I don't know that fasting speeds it up. Dr. Fung's the expert. I'm going to leave that to him. But Dr. David Ludwig, not Robert Lustig, that everybody gets them confused. Lustig was the fructose guy. He did the famous fructose video. There's a doctor out of Harvard, David Ludwig, Ludwig, who did some studies trying to look at this exact thing. And I don't remember what the comparison group was. It was either a low-fat diet or a calorie-controlled diet and a low-carb. I don't remember if it was exactly ketogenic or just low-carb. And everybody's metabolism slowed down, but the keto people slowed down the least. And so I do think, and you'll hear Dr. Westman say this, it does slow down. Let's say you lose 100 pounds on keto. Your metabolism is not the same. You're a lot smaller person. You don't require as many calories just to run your body. So I think, unfortunately, when you lose a lot of weight, regardless of how you do it, your metabolism is going to slow down. I think there's some combination of the hormonal effects that happen on keto that it doesn't slow down as much as it would in a low-calorie setting. And I would imagine a way to offset that, maybe not completely, but a little bit. And I hate to say this because I hate doing it, but lifting weights. The more muscle mass you can put on your body, the quote-unquote higher your metabolism is going to be. Muscle is metabolically expensive. It costs a lot of energy just to keep it on your body. This is why a football player can eat like 8,000 calories and not gain. They need just to hang on to that mass. You don't need that to hang on to your fat mass. You need it to hang on to the muscle. And so building muscle can help. And I wish it wasn't true because I hate lifting weights.
Which is what, isn't that why when we go on a really super low calorie diet that we lose muscle mass instead of fat?
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, and I've been using the phrase lose weight because that's what we all say, but I mean lose fat. On my YouTube channel, I usually always say lose fat. You don't want to lose weight, you don't want to lose bone mass, you don't want to lose organ tissue. This is why there's some women, especially women who were relatively thin to begin with, but not always. Sometimes women that are on a normal or even a heavy weight gain weight on keto. Maybe not at first, but over time, the weight is up and down. And you have to realize that you absolutely cannot go solely by the scale. When you eat this way, you can't have the scale be your only measure of how this is working for you. If you have type 2 diabetes, you can look at your blood sugar. You can, if you, depending on how often you get blood tested, you can look at your triglycerides, your A1C, all that stuff. But from day to day, how are your clothes fitting? How do you feel? Do you have more energy? Because women, when you've been calorie restricting, and it doesn't just apply to women, but it's much more common in women. When you've been calorie restricting for so long, you've been living on your rice cakes and your fat-free yogurt, and you've been doing CrossFit 8 times a week, and you've been doing the gym and the spin class and the boot camp, you gain weight on keto because you're replacing all of the bone mass that you have lost. You're replacing all of the connective tissue that you have broken down when you were unintentionally starving yourself. I see this all the time. Now, this might not happen if your starting weight is 400 pounds. This might not apply to you, but even so, it might. Because just because you're heavy, there's this thing called overfed but undernourished. Right. Just because somebody's heavy on the outside doesn't mean they're actually getting what they need on the inside. You could be 400 pounds and have osteoporosis. So you might be building tissue that's critical for you to build, and so your scale weight isn't changing, but your shape is changing, or your body's changing inside, and it's really hard to hang on to that when all you do is look at that scale 4 times a day.
That brings up a question. I haven't heard anybody talking about keto and osteoporosis. Is there any, does it help with that, or is there any relationship?
We have a question about keto. Do you want to answer that? Or?
Yeah, I just make a comment. My osteoporosis numbers have improved. I've been on keto now for 4.5 years, and I've seen an improvement over a 3-year period, I guess, test.
I think, so keto and bone mass, bone density, I don't think it's necessarily keto that's helping. What's helping is you're eating more protein. Bones are not just calcium wrapped around nothing. Bone is primarily protein. The calcium is wrapped around this protein matrix. It's calcium, it's phosphorus, it's boron, it's magnesium. There's all this other stuff in bone. You're eating more protein, you're eating more fat. There is a vitamin called vitamin K2, not vitamin K1 that we get in leafy greens, vitamin K2. And you know where we find that? Animal fat, especially aged cheeses, egg yolks, liver, stuff that's made from liverwurst, pate. I think there's a very small amount of it in other fatty animal foods, but that's where it's found most. So when you're eating more of that, it doesn't surprise me that bone gets rebuilt. Yeah. Dr. Westman wants Roy to say a few words.
He said so.
I think everybody wants Roy to say a few words.
Roy's here. You gotta introduce yourself for people that don't know you. Roy has worked with Dr. Westman for what? A long time.
Almost 10 years. Almost 10 years. And in the beginning, I did not want to work with him.
Roy.
A reason being is that I had my own little cake business. And it was very lucrative. So when I looked like working with Dr. Westman, I drew the short straw. So I decided, okay, I'll give it a try. And believe it or not, it's gonna last 10 years, and I don't even bake anymore. So Dr. Westman, you got me. And for anyone in there, I've seen everything. Wherever you get off the wagon, that wagon is still right there waiting on you to get back as soon as possible. So as soon as you get back on, everything will work. So thank you.
I have to say the best part that Roy forgot. Dr. Westman calls Roy Father Roy because all the patients confess to him. Because Roy is the one you see first. He's the one that does the weight and the bioimpedance, the measurements of the body fat and all that. So you have to go through Roy before you see Dr. Westman. And they said, Roy, I ate that cake last night. It was my daughter's birthday last week, and I had the bread. So he takes the confessions.
Yeah, Dr. Westman is watching us, so.
I don't know, he may not be on the plane yet, I don't know.
Any other questions? You want to come on down, or you want to? Oh,
We still have some condiments to give away. We might give them to people that ask questions now. We have ketchup and steak sauce left.
Okay, yes, asking for a friend, maybe me, maybe not. Has anyone else noticed that, like, if they have some alcohol, that it affects them way more? Yeah, I mean, luckily I'm a silly person when I drink, but I don't drink a lot, but why?
So I just recorded a video on keto and alcohol. I'm not going to publish it for a few weeks. I have a lot more to go before then, but yes. So but for the people online, we have a question about keto and alcohol. Has anyone noticed that alcohol hits them harder? Yeah, probably everyone on a ketogenic diet who's had a drink or two. This is a very normal, common thing. Nobody knows why. We don't know why alcohol hits you harder and faster, but we know it does. Maybe not in everybody, but just about in everybody, you'll be a cheap date. And alcohol is not prohibited on a ketogenic diet. You can drink. Obviously, beer is out. Beer is liquid bread. You know, there are some light beers that are only 2 or 3 grams of carb, but they're light beer and it's gross. Wine is usually okay. You know, stay away from the sauternes and the sweet Rieslings and the ice wines, the dessert wines. A dry wine is not really that carby. It's not even so much the carbs as it is it's not calorie free. So even if you drink like something on the vodka, whiskey, rum, gin, all of that distilled alcohol is 0 carb. The problem isn't the alcohol, it's the orange juice we put it in, and the cranberry juice, and the soda. So if you do like, back in the day, I used to do Crystal Light with a shot of rum or something. Make yourself a sugar-free cocktail, or have a dry wine or a vodka on the rocks, rum and Diet Coke. The other issue with alcohol is that for some people, maybe not all, for some people, you have a drink or two and it lowers the inhibitions, and then you start eating things you don't normally eat. All of a sudden, like, oh, I'll have a piece of that bread, I'll just have one piece. And because where do we drink? Usually at a party or a restaurant where there's stuff literally within arm's reach that starts you that you might not normally eat. If that's not a problem for you, it's not a problem. And alcohol doesn't really interfere with ketosis, however, it does interfere with fat loss. So if you're struggling to lose weight and you are a heavy drinker, the first place to go is to cut out alcohol.
Yeah, Jack and I aren't friends anymore. Yeah, he behaved really badly. So there is a question here that do we have to tell Father Roy if we drink?
If you drink enough, your liver enzymes will say so, but...
Yes.
Yes, would be the answer there, Amy. So, all right. Let me see if there's anything else here. Dr. Westman says bye, and he agrees with what Amy says. So that's good.
I mean, nobody sees the glass of Chardonnay I have over there. That's invisible. So, no, you can't drink on keto.
I do believe with alcohol, in the very beginning of the program, we usually say, watch it, and don't drink too much. And one of the reasons is that it's going to have to be burned. Isn't alcohol going to be burned before dietary fat and then before your stored body fat? So it's just going to make things a little slower. So now I will tell you, the first time I saw Dr. Westman, went to the clinic, and I was leaving in 2 days to go to Nashville. And so I told him, I said, I know that I'm just getting started on this, but I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to Nashville and I'm going to drink. That's where Jack and I broke up. But I will say, I was very honest that I was going to, that this was for me, was a journey and it was not a race. So I incorporated alcohol throughout my entire program. Now, that being said, I learned very, very soon that the amount of alcohol that I needed is way less than any time before. And I rarely drink now. I'll have a glass of wine here or there. I waste more bottles of wine than I can even, talk about. Open a bottle of wine, I'll have one glass, and then that's it. So
I'll take those off your hands. If you're looking for someone to pass on wine to. I just lost my train of thought. There was something I was going to say about the wine. Drinking is not advised. We're not recommending it. I'm just saying it can fit into keto if you do it properly. And there was something else I was going to say about it. What was it? Oh, this is a journey, not a race. And some people can be very, very strict all the time and cut out everything all the time. And some people can't. Some people have to find a happy medium where good enough is good enough, and it works well enough, and I'm happy with my weight, I'm happy with my health and my energy and my life. I don't, maybe I'm trying to justify a little too much, but I'm from New York City. I was born and raised in New York. I ate a bagel the size of my head every single day, probably from junior high till I graduated from high school. It is a miracle that I have any pancreatic function left whatsoever. So that being said, I haven't had a bagel in 15 years. I don't eat bagels, I don't eat pasta, I don't eat rice, I don't eat cookies. Let me have my wine. I drink so much coffee, there's so much that normal people eat, so much that everybody else eats. Let me have my 1 or 2 little things that make life worth living, and I'll try to fit them into my ketogenic lifestyle. Could I cut out wine? Yeah, I'm going on a cruise in 2 months. I might want to cut out wine, and not on the cruise, but maybe until the cruise. But, you have to do what works for you. And It's gonna look different for everybody. If you go on your Reddit forum or your Facebook group and my most hated phrase other than macros is, "That's not keto." When you post, "Well, I ate such and such," then you've got all the Johnny-come-latelys and cockroaches coming out of the woodwork to tell you that's not keto. You're doing it wrong. You do what works for you. And if that means aspartame, if it means Splenda, if it means a dry wine, if it means keto bread made from almond flour or made from whatever, Christy Sullivan's cookbooks, if it means those treats, have them. You're the only one you need to be accountable to. Nobody else has any say. You know that phrase, "You're not the boss of me"? Nobody's the boss of you. We're all grown adults. Thank goodness.
Yeah, and I would say about that too is that this is a personal journey, and what works for me might not work for you in the sense of, you know, how many carbs that I can have. I probably will always be lower in carbs than other people because, you know, I've already done the damage and I have the genetics. I mean, please, I did my 23andMe and I, you know, came out with the type 2 diabetes gene. So, you know. So that I will tell you, you know, I know that there's going to be always a few of us that are going to always need to be a little lower than those others. So we're not going to get away with some of the other treats that maybe people can, but that's okay. And, you know, for me, it was a matter of wrapping my mind around that and then accepting that and then going on. And it's just, you know, it's a matter of just adjusting the attitude for me. It was like, this is okay, and I'm good with this. So it was another one of those things that we worked on in commitment coaching was figuring out what our big why is. Why are we doing this? And it makes it a whole lot easier when you're making those decisions about how much alcohol to have or how many, you know, carbs to have in your day, is when you're looking at it from the big picture and not just from, you know, this moment that brownie is sitting there and it's like, oh, I really want that brownie. Well, you know, that one moment of enjoying that brownie, does that really measure up against the why am I doing this? What is this in service to? And so I look at that very carefully when I make my decisions about what I eat. It's like, why am I doing this? I'm doing this because I want to be healthy and I want to see my grandchildren someday, and I want to run up and down my stairs, and I don't want to, you know, I don't want my joints to ache. I was a massage therapist for 26 years, and I can tell you that I've blown my joints. They're gone. As am I. I'm retiring at the end of the month. So,
you know, we've been saying you can't really compare yourself to anyone else. Everybody's body is different. Everyone's history is different dietarily and medically. I also want to say you can't compare yourself to yourself at some other point in time. Yeah, like, you know, we were saying before that somebody wrote in about, you know, now I'm having sugar cravings, and I mentioned that you might literally be a different person than you were when you started. You might weigh 100 pounds less. You might be off of 6 medications you were taking. Whatever the case, you might have a lot more muscle. You might be walking 3 miles a day that you never did before. Whatever it is, what worked for you at one point in time might not work for you now. When you were 17 years old, you might have eaten all the pizza and Coke you wanted, and you were thin as a beanpole and everything was great. Is that the case now? No. And the same thing can happen on keto. You know, your own body changes with age, with women. If you've seen Dr. Westman's sort of partner, Jackie Everstein, speak, you know, she has a lot of experience helping peri and postmenopausal women because the hormonal changes are so drastic that you really have to change what you do, even on keto. And so I see this with clients so much. People get into ruts. But it's understandable. This happens to me. When something's working, you're like, oh man, I'm doing this and I'm never doing anything else ever. This is what I'm sticking with. And even when you get to the point where it's not working so much anymore, you're afraid to try something different. And not to like get into a weird territory, we see this all the time with vegans, right? Vegans, we've seen so many vegan celebrities on YouTube now come out, so to speak, that I'm eating meat, I'm no longer vegan. They get caught, like there was a picture of some girl eating fish and all, you know, what broke loose. Because maybe they felt better initially. They felt really good for a couple of weeks or months, but then they start to not feel so good, but they're so invested in that identity and that thing that they're afraid to do something else. And I see this happen in keto too. And it doesn't mean that you have to stop keto. It just means you might have to change it in some more protein, less fat, whatever. So don't be afraid. There's a lot of different variation within this, that you can still be keto, but your keto diet looks very different, not only to someone else's, but to how your keto diet looked 3 years ago. Okay, we have a question online. Repeat DEXA, which is the body scan. Body fat gone up 5.3%, lean mass gone down, been keto, intermittent fasting, or extended fasting for 12 months. Well, it's hard for us, I don't want to out you publicly, I don't have to announce your weight, but it's hard for us to comment without knowing what your actual weight is or what your actual body fat percentage is. It's gone up, but we don't know what it was. Maybe you needed to gain weight. Did you start out underweight? You know, we don't know. This is when people, if you're a part of online forums or groups, and somebody will post, you know, I'm gaining weight, help. And that's all they say. And you've got 10 gym bros chiming in, well, you need to do this. You don't even know how much this person weighs. They could be under, like, you have no idea. This drives me crazy. When people jump in to give advice when you don't even know the situation, that can actually be dangerous. Not only stupid and misguided, but dangerous. You don't know if that person's on a medication, you don't know what the situation is. So we really can't comment. You know, extended fasting, I don't know what your situation is. Again, not everybody needs to fast, especially not the extended fasting. I know Jason Fung and Megan Ramos personally from the IDM clinic. They specialize in fasting. I think they're great. Still, and they would say this too. Not everybody needs to fast. It's one more tool in the arsenal. All right, we're running out of time. Anyone, any confessions for Father Roy here? Or speak now, or forever hold your peace, or till your next appointment. We still have 2 condiments. Does anyone, I don't know, is anyone off, who's off of medication? Anyone off of, you want to come get something? Or I don't know, like, we got to give these away. I can take these back home, but, you know, we brought them to give away. What do you want? You want steak sauce, ketchup? They're both good.
Yeah, thank you. What brand is that?
So it's by a brand called Guy Gone Keto, Guy like G-U-I, Guy Gone Keto, and it's guygoneketo.com. These are just little sample bottles. If you buy them online, they're pretty big. They're a little bit pricey, but I can tell you they're delicious. And I've used them. I haven't had any issue in terms of like weight or, you know, stopping ketosis. They've been fine. The only, they're all what I would say, quote unquote, normal ingredients. They use a sweetener called Keto Sweet, which is a blend of monk fruit, stevia, and allulose. And I actually had to do some research on allulose. I think it's okay based on the research I've seen. I wouldn't like mainline it. I wouldn't make it the basis of my diet, but the amount that's in here is probably minimal anyway, and the research is actually kind of impressive on it actually, so I'm not worried about that in terms of the sweetener. We gotta give, like, who wants a prize? I don't know. Everybody here is worthy. Who, I don't know, who's you want one? All right. I was gonna say, who came the furthest? I know we have somebody from Charlotte. Oh, there you go. Thank you guys for coming tonight. Oh, you have one question?
Yeah, you said you were retiring. Are you going to continue with us?
Yes, I'm going to be here. I'm going to go to work full-time with HEAL clinics. And yes, I'm retiring as a massage therapist. So. I do want to mention one more time here that the OPO is getting ready to close down. If you would like to make a good investment, and also which is investing in Dr. Westman's vision of putting type 2 diabetes in remission. And again, that's what we're raising these funds for. We're very close to our goal of $1 million, which is going to be, offers the ability to open more clinics. And that's really what Dr. Westman's vision is. Dr. Westman is not about, being in business and all of those things. He is truly one of those doctors that's a healer, in my opinion. So.
Absolutely correct.
Thank you guys very much, and we enjoyed it, and we'll see you next month.